Welcome back. Well, today we have a hot topic. It's a hot topic. Yahweh, I think, as a Jehovah's Witness, ex-Jehovah's Witness, spent most of my life as a Jehovah's Witness. We all knew Jehovah equals Yahweh. We all knew that. It equals a tetragrammaton, Latinized form of it. But for argument's sake, we'll use the word Yahweh today in this discussion. That's what everyone else uses, pretty much. So, did Jesus come to save us from Yahweh? Well, this morning I got up and I was having my coffee, and I says to my wife, I says, it sure is nice not being inspired to talk about anything. Like, there was really nothing to talk about. I was going to have a day off, actually. And the next thing you know, before I got through the first coffee, my wife started asking questions about, well, we watched, before bed, we watched a bunch of videos. And I'm going to show you in part 3 videos that we watched about this very subject. Well, kind of about this subject. And so she asked a bunch of questions. Well, do you know about Enoch? Well, yeah, most JWs, I think the org talked about Enoch and Ezekiel and all these guys. These were some of the questions. Well, what do you think? And so one question led to another. So here we are, we're talking about this, and I think it's worth talking about. I think a lot of people have questions, and I think the governing body is even looking at some of this, perhaps. Let's look at David's plane here. I want to change the display here, and I'll come back on with you guys here, and I'll turn him on this time. So he looks worried. Like, how's he gonna? Let's say these guys have awoken, and what I mean by this is that if you've awoken, you get outside of the Bible, you start kind of coming back in and realizing what's real. Now, the one thing that we've been kind of led down the wrong path was the truth, Jesus. The whole Jesus narrative. But in this 2023 annual meeting, they're bringing Jesus back in, it seems like. And they're questioning, they're drawing questions about Jehovah, about their former belief, about how Jehovah's Witnesses used to believe about Jehovah. Everything about Jehovah was absolute. Well, let's tune in here and see what David says again here. And look at his face. Here he's looking at us, the audience. He doesn't want to perhaps deceive us. So he's going to talk to us about Jehovah, about Yahweh. And how Yahweh, Abraham went to Yahweh and said, well, how do you know that there might be some faithful ones still in Sodom before you destroy it? And David's plane brought up other ones, where the 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were slaughtered in one night by an angel at Yahweh's command. So when we look at Yahweh has a warring history. It seems like David's talking about that a bit. My wife and I were talking about when they went through the Israel, or when they were going through the desert, the wilderness, and they were starving, they were thirsty, and they were complaining to Moses, and then all these snakes came and bit them, and a whole bunch of them died at the hand of Yahweh for complaining. Unlike Jesus, when the people were thirsty and hungry, he fed them some fish and some bread and sent them home with full tummies, happy. So we see a contrast, and look in and see what you see here with David's plane.
By means of an angel, Jehovah God told his dear friend Abraham that he was going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The angel said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is very heavy." Abraham was troubled. He apparently wondered whether Jehovah had taken all of the factors into consideration before he made that decision to destroy the cities. So he asked, "Will the judge of all the earth not do what is right?" Well, we can understand why Abraham would ask that question. It was early days in his relationship with Jehovah God. He was just beginning to get acquainted with Jehovah, and we can hardly imagine him asking the same question later when he knew Jehovah much better. But have you ever asked a similar question? Maybe when you were just coming into the truth? Have you ever asked, for example, will none of those who died in the flood get a resurrection? Even those who may never have heard of Noah? And what about Sodom and Gomorrah? Will everyone who died in Sodom and Gomorrah sleep an everlasting sleep? The women, the children, babies. And was there not one redeemable Assyrian soldier in that band of 185,000 who died at the hand of Jehovah's angel? We don't have the answer to those questions. But we do know one thing. The merciful judge of all the earth will do what is right. Wait a minute. Did I hear that right? We don't have the answer to those questions? I thought we did. In the past, our publications have stated that there's no hope of a resurrection for those who died in the flood or those destroyed in Sodom and Gomorrah. But do we really know that? The men of Sodom and Gomorrah were certainly wicked, and they deserved to die for what they did. But did they know any better? How often did Lot and his family preach to them? And are we saying that if special pioneers had been assigned to Sodom, that they would have had no success whatsoever in preaching to the Sodomites, helping them to turn around and come to a knowledge of Jehovah? Can we say dogmatically that not one Sodomite would have repented if Jehovah's requirements have been explained? And then there's the fascinating statement made by Jesus, found at Matthew chapter 11. I'll give you a moment. Matthew chapter 11, and we're going to read verses 23 and 24. This is interesting. Matthew 11, 23 and 24. And you, Capernaum, will you perhaps be exalted to heaven? Down to the grave you will come. Because, and notice this, if the powerful works that took place in you had taken place in Sodom, it would have remained until this very day. But I say to you, it will be more endurable for the land of Sodom on Judgment Day than for you.
Okay, now my mic's on. Okay, so we went along there. He goes on to a little further here, and I'm going to see if I can move us forward. And he talks a little bit more about Jesus. But here we see the whole organization, the whole Jehovah's Witness organization has taken a shift. Just one talk. And there's a whole lot of thinking that we have to erase in our brains. So then that leads a lot of us to start researching, start looking a little further into this. And the further we look into this, well, David's Blaine, he's questioning how they used to believe, how everything that Jehovah did was the finale of everything. You know, Jesus comes along and something different has taken place. And he's saying different things too. So let's just move forward here a little bit.
To do what was right, and Jehovah wiped the slate clean. Well, today, power for judging has been given to someone else. There's a different judge of all the earth. And we read about him at John chapter 5. John chapter 5. And we're going to read verse 22. I'll give you a moment. John 5 and 22. For the Father judges no one at all, but he has entrusted all the judging to the Son. Jesus has been given authority to judge the living and the dead. Well, can we trust him? Can we be sure that Jesus will be merciful? Absolutely. He's the exact image of his Father.
What was that? He was the exact image of?
Well, can we trust him? Can we be sure that Jesus will be merciful? Absolutely. He's the exact image of his Father. And the prophet Isaiah wrote of him, he will not...
Okay, so that's up for dispute. Let's go further. So anyways, David's plane recognizes that Jesus is the judge. Now we're seeing a distinction, the Old Testament, the New Testament. I'm thinking at this point he's wishing that they were Jesus witnesses, because that's kind of the era that we're in now. The other era with this Yahwehism era was more or less for the Israelite nation. Now, what I question, Jesus talks to his Father, but his Father may not be the same Father that rules over Israel, Yahweh. That may not be his Father? I don't think so. Now, let's go a little further. We're going to look at Ezekiel, how religions, and how the Jehovah's Witness religions is trying to decipher everything, kind of in the time that we're living. Let's flip over to another video. Okay, this is Stephen Lett.
I'm glad you indicated you want to hear this. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1, tells us that Absalom, who was trying to usurp the throne, had a royal chariot built for himself. It was pulled by majestic horses. 50 men ran ahead of that chariot. Now, as impressive as that chariot and rider may have seemed to many, compared to the celestial chariot mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 1, Absalom's chariot would be a sluggish, minuscule rattletrap. As we know, that chariot mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 1 represents the heavenly part of Jehovah's organization. Who is the rider of this chariot? Jehovah himself. Why is he depicted this way? Well, Jehovah lovingly controls the movements of his organization to accomplish his will and purpose. No wonder Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 18 describes the rims of the wheels of the chariot as having eyes all around. All-seeing Jehovah directs everything. Well, what is the speed of Jehovah's chariot? Absalom's chariot may have been able to reach speeds up to 45 miles an hour, the speed of a racehorse. But what about Jehovah's chariot? Well, in the Bible, verse 14, chapter 1, it describes its movements in comparison with flashes of lightning. Now, a flash of lightning travels at 186,000 miles per second, the speed of light. But if we think about it, Jehovah's chariot's a lot faster than that. In fact, we could say it travels at the speed of thought, at the speed of Jehovah's thought. And obviously, that would be immeasurably fast. Now, we can't see into the invisible realm and see how Jehovah is using the heavenly part of his organization with lightning speed to accomplish his will and purpose. But we can see how fast things are moving in the visible part of Jehovah's organization. And that only makes sense, doesn't it? Because the earthly part is closely related to the heavenly.
Okay, before we get running away on this. So, Stephen Lett went on to explain this chariot. We're going to look at this chariot from a different set of eyes. But he's explaining it how a lot of theologians kind of explain Ezekiel's chariot. You know, they link it to God, God being the creator of mankind. And if you think about that, it all makes sense. Now we're going to go outside a bit, and we're going to look at the God, or the Elohim, and the names of God, and how there's a difference. So let's move on to the next scene. This gives us an illustration on this chariot. I think as Jehovah's Witnesses, we've all heard this very similar talk. I've heard it over the 30 years many times over. This is a reiteration of other talks when they explain Jehovah's chariot. So we're going to take a look at a couple of other Bible scholars and see what they say. Now, just before we head into that, I thought I'd pull this up. I'm going to put links to all this in the descriptions below, but this is Enoch. I wanted to know a little bit more of Enoch, where he came from, because Enoch is a book in the Bible that he's a character that is mentioned in the Bible, the current Bible that we have. But there is a book of Enoch, and it's widely known. So this talks about it. It shows the genealogy of Enoch, where he comes from, how he gets into the picture. And I thought it was quite interesting, this chart, because you can actually look and you can see a little bit of information on each of the characters that you highlight over. So we look at Enoch. Enoch's in Mormonism, influence in Christianity. Enoch is a character, and there is a book of Enoch. So the book of Enoch isn't put into the Bible for, I guess, a number of reasons. I guess they couldn't find it. But we're going to show you a little bit of a video that talks about the book of Enoch. My next article I looked at on Wikipedia was Yahweh. Yahweh is kind of a mind opener, because if you read this, it's a quick read, and it shows us that Yahweh came into existence. Yahweh was not at the beginning. History shows that Yahweh was implemented into the nation of Israel in the late Bronze Age. Yahweh was a war god. This is the name given to Yahweh. Yahweh was over his people. So when you do a little bit of research on Yahweh, you realize, and this is where Jehovah comes from, this is the war god, or the God over Israel. And it's no wonder, as David Splain was saying, Yahweh is a God over those people that killed a lot of people. But Jesus has come to resurrect people. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so the next place I went is, I wanted to look at the genealogy of Jesus, just to see which lineage he came through. And this is a good article here. And it shows a chart of all of the characters that Jesus came from. So this helps us to see, Jesus came through, was it Shem? David. He's from the Davidic line, the Davidic line of David. So all our histories here, you can look at it and see that Jesus is a real person according to history. Okay, so here's where it gets dicey, is Deuteronomy. This is a Jehovah's Witness Bible. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 8, it says, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance. So who would the Most High be? We would think it would be Yahweh or Jehovah. That's who we would think. That's who I used to think it was, the Most High. But it isn't. We're going to take a look at this Most High is something else. It's another type of God. So the Most High. And the Most High gave the nations their inheritance. And when he divided the sons of Adam from one another, this is going right back to the beginning, he fixed the boundaries of the peoples over the earth, and with the regard for the number of the sons of Israel. And for Jehovah's people are his portion, or for Yahweh's people, or his portion, and Jacob is his inheritance. You see, Yahweh is over Jacob. It's right here in the Jehovah's Witness Bible. Now we'll go over to another Bible. This is, I think, the Revised English version. And it says here in verse 8, when the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the people according to the numbers of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion, you see how Lord is? That's Yahweh. When the Lord's portion is his people, Yahweh's people, Jacob is his allotted heritage. So it says the same thing. It's actually clearer in the Jehovah's Witness Bible, because you can see where they put Jehovah in, where Yahweh would be. And yet the Most High is another God. Okay, I'm going to jump over to Ezekiel's vision. This is Ezekiel in Wikipedia. And they actually break it down verse by verse. They talk about the vision of the throne chariot. And Ezekiel's first vision comes when a stormy wind blew in from the north, bringing in with it a shiny cloud that contains Yahweh's chariot, borne by supernatural creatures. And these 4 living creatures are identified in Ezekiel. And so Stephen Lett was explaining this chariot here in these verses. And he was talking about how it's likened to Jehovah's chariot, how you got to get on and it's fast moving. So in theology, they try to explain this and they try to make sense of it. So what we understand, these are old writings. Ezekiel was an eyewitness of something miraculous, something that happened, something out of this world, something that came from the heavens. And theology has called it God. So let's see what some historians call it. Okay, we're just going to play a little bit of this video. And the title of it is The Bible Does Not Talk About God. So the Bible does not talk about God. So I encourage you to watch this whole video. We're just going to look at a little bit of it, just to look at how these titles have different meanings. And, maybe we didn't understand the real meaning behind it all. It looks to me like maybe there's a bit of an awakening right now, and that everyone's beginning to understand that this Elohim is a group of gods that could be extraterrestrial, and that there could be a father above everything. Paul talked about the father of the cosmos, the God of the cosmos. While these gods, Yahweh looks more like could be a literal manager, could have been a soldier kind of a god on earth. So let's look at this. I'm going to get off the screen and I will let it play.
Substitute Lord or Eternal with Yahweh. Substitute Most High with Elion, the leader of Elohim. Substitute Almighty God with El Shaddai. Substitute Spirit with Ruach. Substitute Glory with Kavod. According to Bellino, the term God is the unjust theological translation of the term Elohim, a plural term meaning gods, often singularly used as Eloha, related to El, who became Allah to the Muslims. The plurality of this term is considered a majestic plural by theologians, which Bellino refutes, stating that the correct translation remains uncertain. Elohim, based on the context, may either refer to Yahweh or foreign deities like the Moabite god Chemosh, the Sidonian goddess Astarte, angels or mortals such as judges or kings. How possible is it that Yahweh was a simple king made God by his people? A bit like King Xerxes I for the Persians, or like the pharaohs for the ancient Egyptians. Is this a case of euhemerism? A true story exaggerated to the point it became a legend? According to Bellino, some parts of the Bible can prove it, like Deuteronomy 32, 8-9 and 12. In Deuteronomy 32:8, following the rules of Bellino, we substitute Most High with Elion, which means the one that stands above, representing the highest military rank, the general. In the oldest Hebrew texts, it is not written that it was divided among the sons of Israel, but among the sons of the Elohim. Therefore, Elion was dividing the territory among the sons of Elohim. Yahweh, in this division, was assigned the people of Israel, because other territories were assigned to other Elohim, like Chemosh, Milcom, Dagon, Astarte. In Deuteronomy 32:12, we notice that Yahweh alone led Israel. No other foreign god Elohim was with Yahweh. How can there be other foreign gods when Yahweh is supposed to be the only God? In the first commandment of the Hebrew Bible, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," Yahweh clearly knows that there are other gods Elohim ruling other territories, and he wants you to only follow him. According to Belenio, the Psalm 82:1 is the nail in the coffin to the theologian theory of the plural majestatis, where Yahweh takes place in a divine council among other gods, Elohim, which proves that Elohim is not one but many, because obviously God cannot sit alone in the divine council. God being all-powerful and all-knowing, according to Belenio, are theological concepts based on extra-philosophical conjectures for God to be the creator of the universe. But these concepts, in many cases, are disproven by the Bible itself. In Genesis 18:1-2, Belenio states that in Hebrew, there's no concept of appear from nothing. The Hebrew verse means to come physically. If it were to be true that God appears, why does he need water to clean his feet? Did his feet get dirty because of the sand? Why does God need to drink, eat, and take rest like mortals? And when God reveals that he's thinking about destroying Sodom and Gomorrah, Genesis 18:20-21, Abraham tries to convince God to not kill the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, stating, "What if there are 50 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah? Will you kill everyone if you know that there are good people among bad people?" And God replies that if he finds 50 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, he will forgive everyone. And Abraham, "What if there are 45? Will you kill them anyway?" God replies, "No." Abraham, "What if there are 40? And Abraham keeps dealing until he convinces God not to kill anyone if he finds 10 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah. "If I find, I will spare the whole place." And Belenio asks, if God is all-knowing, why why does the Bible say that he does not know how many good people there are in Sodom and Gomorrah? Cannot God see in the soul of the people? Why is this out of his control? Then Belenio adds, good people, as mentioned in Genesis 17:10-12, means circumcised people, which is the symbol of the alliance with Yahweh, and therefore, Yahweh must check everyone to see if they are circumcised. This explains why Yahweh does not know how many people are good, because the circumcision is a hidden symbol of his alliance. Belenio states with reference to Samuel 15:2-3 that it should be clear by now that Yahweh is a military general, not concerned with love and compassion, but war and utilitarianist methods to defend and expand the land of Israel, no matter how much blood is shed.
Okay, that's about all we're going to run of this video. I'm going to put a link to it because if this interests you, you'll want to watch this whole video. He goes on to talk about some other scriptures, about in Numbers where Yahweh had all these women and children killed, and then, it doesn't make sense. Why would Yahweh want some of the sheep, some of the cattle, and some of the women? Why would Yahweh want that? So it leads you into a whole different discussion. Okay, so we're going to look at another video here. This is the same guy, but Paul Wallace
reading an
is
extremely
using
clear
him.
Bible without ever having to discuss translations with anyone and respecting the ancient authors. Hello, thank you, see you next time.
Thank you, Mauro. Elyon really is a fascinating word. As Mauro said, it's one of the words that we conventionally translate as God in the Bible. Now, when I say the word God, we think of an ultimate entity. The Apostle Paul once defined God as the source of the cosmos and everything in it, that in which we all live and move and have our being. But that is not the meaning of the word Elyon, as we've already seen. And we think of Elyon as this superlative, but as Mauro rightly said, it is a word that defines this being in relationship with other beings. But I want to go back to the formation of the Hebrew canon, what Christians call the Old Testament, because there's a very broad scholarly consensus that the Hebrew scriptures took their current form sometime in the 6th century BCE, and that what happened was a scissors and paste redaction. The library of scrolls and books that formed the Hebrew canon were reworked, edited, cut and pasted to try and present a seamless story presenting the theology of the redactors at that time. So I would absolutely endorse what Mauro said when he says that the final redaction of the Hebrew scriptures was done not on the basis of grammar or exposition of the texts, but was done for ideological reasons, to teach monotheism and to endorse the Jerusalem temple and disendorse all the other temples that existed, and to endorse the high priestly family that ran the Jerusalem temple as, in essence, the inheritors of the power of the monarchy. So it justifies the Davidic monarchy, and then the Levitical priesthood, and then the authority of the high priestly family, and the authority of the Jerusalem temple. That's really the message of that final redaction, in an attempt to pare Judaism down and clean it up into this pyramid of powers.
Okay, well, that's all we're going to run on this one. I'll link this video again. This is the commander of the Elohim. This information is key. I'll link it. Paul Wallace and Mario Bellino. And, okay, we're going to look at one more video really quickly. And here we go. Okay, this is Eric von Daniken on the importance of the Book of Enoch. Now, if you forget who he is, he wrote this book, The Chariots of the Gods. The Chariots of the Gods. And he became famous from this book. This is he goes back a long ways. He's one of the grandfathers that started looking at this. Now, what I thought fascinating about this video, and I'm not going to play a lot of it, just playing his ending, he talks a lot about the Book of Enoch. He read the Book of Enoch. He explains the Book of Enoch. I was wondering about the book, what it was all about. So if you're wondering what the Book of Enoch is about, it's a hidden book. You'll want to watch this. And it's fascinating. Fascinating. And he takes you into outer space. Enoch, excuse me, lived in outer space. And so it's a fascinating journey if you follow this. But having said everything, he believes that there's a Elohim, and these Elohim or E.T. Could comprise of Yahweh, the creator gods, that Adam was created, and there was a purpose in this. And if you follow some of this stuff, Adam and Eve, the first humankind were created. It makes sense because there was an advancement in evolution on Earth. There was a jump by billions of years, they say. And if we follow some of these stories, it looks like maybe, and even if we follow the Bible, we were made in their image. They said, let us create man in our image. This is the Elohim. This is the creator gods. This could be the ETs playing with the DNA. We do that today. This is not unreal. So as soon as we start looking at some of these ancient texts through the eyes of, well, how would they record this stuff back in the Stone Age? Today, if we flew in there today with our current jets, and we have some jets that can just land. They don't need a runway. And if we could imagine that kind of technology back then, well, we would have Ezekiel and Enoch perhaps writing the same types of stories. Maybe if Enoch got into one of our aircrafts and flew into outer space and spent a week up in the space station, well, it wouldn't be as good as what he explains in his story, but I think you'll enjoy it. But what this does for me is it takes me outside of the Bible. Let's take a look at this. Maybe we all have the wrong narrative. Maybe Jesus did come to save us from all of this stuff. Let's see what Eric has to say.
From another solar system. And the others again, play back the game. It doesn't matter. For millions of years, it doesn't matter. Finally, you came to a standpoint, a starting point, where in all respect, with every religion, you have to admire, here is the beginning. Here is God. You never lose God. You see, in science, they tell us in the beginning there was a Big Bang. Okay, but what created the Big Bang, the so-called big atom? Nothing comes from nothing, not even in astrophysics. In religion, they say in the beginning there was God. But even God does not come from nothing. What or who creates God? So be it science or be it religion, we doesn't know the starting point. And that's the moment where in every respect we have to aspect there is a spirit, there is a being, a creation spirit which we adore and which we call in the human form as God. That's why I never lost God. I am one of these humble humans who pray and admire the spirit of the universe and God. Thank you for listening to this controversial Eric van Däniken.
Well, I have found this to be quite a journey. I hope you enjoyed the few clips that we gave you. And taking a look from David Splain from JW.org, they're questioning their belief. They're looking at it. And if you woke up, if you were part of a religion and you started waking up to all this stuff, how would you roll that out to your audience? It's interesting. Well, anyways, folks, I look forward to your research and your comments. So until next time, keep living your day with love. Bye for now. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your comments, your dislikes, and your likes. If you would like to support the channel, just press join and buy us a coffee once a month. Until next time, keep dancing, smiling, laughing, and most of all, keep loving those around you. And have a great day.
Produced by Fixing My Faith.